comment where you're watching from today, and get ready for a story that shows how a single act of kindness can change everything. The morning sun filtered through the slightly dusty windows of the corner bistro, casting long shadows across the worn but clean tile floor. It was just another Tuesday morning in Los Angeles, and Rachel Anderson had already been on her feet for 4 hours straight. Her comfortable but well-worn sneakers carried her between tables as she balanced plates and smiled through her exhaustion, each step a reminder of the long day ahead. The small family restaurant had been her workplace for the past 3 years, a steady job that barely covered her bills but felt like home thanks to the regular customers and her close-knit coworkers. The morning rush was starting to wind down when Rachel noticed a commotion near the entrance. A young man with perfectly styled hair and designer clothes was setting up an expensive camera with his companion, their presence immediately drawing attention from the other diners. Lucas Hayes had made a name for himself on social media by creating viral videos that often came at others' expense. His followers loved his brash personality and what he called social experiments, though many would argue they were simply elaborate ways to mock unsuspecting people. Today, he had chosen the corner bistro as his latest stage, and Rachel Anderson was unknowingly about to become part of his performance. Diana Martinez, the restaurant manager, watched the scene unfold with concern. She had seen enough viral videos to know when something was about to go wrong, but before she could intervene, Lucas and his cameraman, Alex Turner, had already settled into a booth in Rachel's section. Frank Miller, a retired teacher who came in every morning for his coffee and crossword puzzle, shook his head disapprovingly as Lucas loudly announced his presence to his live streaming audience. Rachel approached the table with her usual warm smile, though something about Lucas's demeanor made her instinctively wary. "Good morning. Welcome to the corner bistro. Can I start you off with some drinks?" she asked, pen poised over her notepad. Lucas smirked at the camera before turning to her, his voice deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, what do we have here? Let me guess, another waitress living off tips because she couldn't make it in Hollywood." His words cut through the morning chatter, causing several heads to turn. Rachel's smile faltered slightly, but years of customer service experience had taught her to maintain her composure. Alex adjusted the camera angle, capturing every moment of the interaction. Lucas continued his performance, each comment more cutting than the last. "I mean, look at those shoes, they've definitely seen better days. Hey guys, maybe we should start a donation fund for some new ones." He laughed, playing to his audience as comments and likes poured in on his live stream. Rachel stood there, professional smile fixed in place, even as her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Sophie Lee, working the adjacent section, watched helplessly as her friend endured the public humiliation. The young waitress wanted to step in, but Rachel caught her eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. They both knew confrontation would only make things worse, and they couldn't afford to lose their jobs. Just then, the bell above the door chimed again. A man in a simple black t-shirt and jeans walked in, his presence somehow commanding despite his casual attire. Few people noticed him at first, their attention still focused on Lucas's continuing performance. The man took a seat at the counter, quietly observing the scene before him. Lucas, emboldened by his growing online audience, decided to escalate his content creation. He deliberately spilled his water across the table, then called Rachel back. "Oh, clumsy me. Maybe if you'd been more attentive, this wouldn't have happened. This is why you're still serving tables, isn't it?" Rachel began cleaning up the spill, her hands slightly shaking but her voice remaining steady. "I'll get you a fresh glass right away, sir." The word, "sir," carried no hint of the anger she felt, a testament to years of practicing patience in the face of difficult customers. The man at the counter continued watching, his expression hardening as Lucas proceeded to make more demands, each one accompanied by a demeaning comment. "Make sure the ice cubes are perfectly square this time. I know that might be a complex request for someone in your position." Alex zoomed in on Rachel's face, capturing every micro-expression for their audience's entertainment. Frank Miller had seen enough. The retired teacher stood up, ready to intervene, but Diana Martinez gently touched his arm. She had noticed something he hadn't. The man at the counter had already begun to move. Jason Statham, known for his action movies but today just a customer in a diner, had decided this show needed a different ending. Lucas was in the middle of another performative complaint when a shadow fell across his table. He looked up, his confident smirk faltering as he recognized the figures standing before him. Jason Statham's presence was impossible to ignore, his quiet authority filling the space more effectively than Lucas's loud performance ever could. "Having fun, are we?" Statham's distinctive voice carried across the now-silent diner. Lucas's face went through a rapid series of expressions: surprise, recognition, and then an attempt to maintain his social media persona. "Oh man, Jason Statham. This is amazing. Guys, look who just walked in." He turned to his camera, trying to spin the situation into content gold. But Statham wasn't playing along. "Turn it off," he said simply, his tone leaving no room for argument. When Lucas hesitated, Statham leaned in slightly. "The camera. Turn it off. Now." Alex, reading the room better than his boss, quickly lowered the equipment. "Listen, mate," Statham continued, his voice controlled but intense. "I've watched you spend the last 10 minutes trying to build your social media empire on the back of someone else's dignity. Where I come from, we call that being a bully. And I've never had much patience for bullies." Rachel stood nearby, frozen in place, as the action star she'd seen in countless movies defended her honor with the same quiet intensity he brought to his films. Lucas, realizing his plan had backfired spectacularly, attempted to salvage the situation. "It's just content, man. People love it, we're getting thousands of views." "Content?" Statham raised an eyebrow. "Let me tell you about content. Content is what this lady creates every day when she comes to work with a smile, treating people with respect even when they don't deserve it. Content is what your camera missed, her helping that elderly gentleman with his walker earlier, or making sure that kid's pancakes came out special for his birthday." The diner had fallen completely silent, every eye fixed on the scene unfolding before them. Lucas's confident facade had crumbled, replaced by the uncomfortable realization that he had become the subject of exactly the kind of public humiliation he usually inflicted on others. "But you wouldn't know about that kind of content, would you?" Statham continued. "Because that doesn't get views. That doesn't get likes. That doesn't feed the ego." He turned to Rachel, his expression softening. "How long have you worked here, love?" 3 years, Rachel answered quietly, still processing the surreal situation. 3 years of honest work, dealing with people like him. Statham nodded toward Lucas. "That takes more strength than any of the tough guys I've played in movies. Real strength isn't about humiliating others to make yourself feel powerful. It's about maintaining your dignity when others try to take it from you." Let us know in the comments if you've ever witnessed someone standing up against bullying in an unexpected way. Sometimes the most powerful moments come from the most unexpected places. The tension in the corner bistro was palpable as Jason Statham's words hung in the air. Lucas Hayes, the social media influencer who had walked in with such confidence just minutes ago, now sat speechless, his carefully crafted persona crumbling under the weight of real authenticity. His cameraman, Alex Turner, had completely lowered his equipment, sensing that this was a moment that shouldn't and wouldn't be filmed. Diana Martinez, who had watched the entire scene unfold, stepped forward with quiet authority. "Mr. Hayes, I think it's time for you to leave." Her voice was professional but firm, the kind of tone that came from years of managing difficult situations. Lucas looked around, suddenly aware that every face in the diner was turned toward him, and none of them wore the amused expressions he was used to seeing in his comment sections. But Statham wasn't finished. He pulled up a chair, sitting down at Lucas's table with the casual confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. "Before you go, though, let's talk about what real content looks like." He gestured to Rachel, who still stood nearby, her notepad clutched in slightly trembling hands. "Sit down for a minute, love. You've been on your feet long enough." Rachel hesitated, looking at Diana, who nodded encouragingly. As she sat down, Frank Miller, the retired teacher, spoke up from his regular spot. "I've been coming here every morning for 5 years, he said, his voice carrying across the quiet diner. "And I've never seen Rachel be anything but kind, even to those who don't deserve it." Sophie Lee, emboldened by the support for her friend, stepped forward. "Last week, Rachel covered half my shift when my mom was sick. She worked a double just so I could be there for my family." Her voice grew stronger as she continued, "And she does things like that all the time, but she never posts about it online." Lucas shifted uncomfortably in his seat as more voices joined in. A young mother at a nearby table spoke up about how Rachel always made sure her son's allergies were carefully accommodated. An elderly couple recalled how she had helped them celebrate their 50th anniversary with a surprise dessert she had paid for herself. Statham leaned back, his eyes never leaving Lucas. "See, mate, this is the content you've been missing. Real stories. Real impact. But you can't capture that with a prank or a mean-spirited joke. It doesn't fit in your perfectly edited videos or get you those quick likes you're chasing." Michael Foster, the restaurant owner, emerged from the kitchen where he had been watching the scene unfold. "Rachel's been here 3 years," he said, moving to stand behind her chair. "In that time, she's never called in sick, never complained about difficult customers, and has probably done more to build our reputation than all our advertising combined." Lucas's face had turned a deep shade of red as he realized how completely his attempt at viral content had backfired. His usual tactics of mockery and humiliation seemed childish and small in the face of genuine community and respect. Alex, his cameraman, had taken a step back, physically distancing himself from his employer's disgrace. "Here's what's going to happen," Statham continued, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "You're going to delete that live stream. All of it. Then you're going to take a good, hard look at the kind of content you create and ask yourself if it's making the world better or just adding to its problems." Rachel, who had remained quiet throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. "You know, Mr. Hayes, every day I serve people who are having both their best and worst moments. I've celebrated job promotions and comforted people who just lost loved ones. That's what this job really is, being there for people's real lives, not creating fake moments for entertainment." Diana Martinez nodded approvingly at Rachel's words. "We're not just serving food here. We're providing a space where people can feel welcome, respected, and cared for. Something your videos seem to have forgotten about." The diner had become more than just a restaurant in that moment. It was a courtroom of public opinion, and Lucas Hayes was facing a judgment far more meaningful than any number of likes or shares. His carefully constructed online persona, built on the foundation of mocking others, was being dismantled by the simple power of genuine human connection. Statham pulled out his phone, scrolling through something before turning it toward Lucas. "Look at this," he said, showing him the comments already pouring in from people who had witnessed the live stream before it was cut off. Many were calling out the influencer's behavior, expressing support for Rachel, and sharing their own stories of dealing with online bullying. "Your followers are smarter than you give them credit for," Statham observed. "They can tell the difference between entertainment and cruelty. And right now, they're choosing kindness over clicks." Lucas stared at the phone, watching as his carefully cultivated image began to unravel in real time. Comments from his usual supporters were being overwhelmed by voices calling for change, demanding better content, and expressing disappointment in his choices. Sophie Lee had begun serving other customers again, but she couldn't help overhearing a group of teenagers at one of her tables discussing how they were unfollowing Lucas's channel. "We don't want to support that kind of content anymore," one of them said loudly enough to be heard. The influencer's world was shifting beneath his feet. The very audience he had sought to entertain with his mockery was now turning against him, taught a powerful lesson about dignity and respect by an unexpected mentor. Alex Turner, who had filmed countless similar pranks, without question, was quietly packing up his equipment, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You have a platform," Statham continued, his tone softening slightly. "That's a responsibility, not just an opportunity to get attention. These people you mock for views? They're building communities, supporting each other, making real differences in people's lives. That's the content worth sharing." Michael Foster stepped forward again, this time with a proposition. "If you want to see what real service looks like, why don't you work a shift here? No cameras, no social media, just honest work serving others. Might give you a new perspective on what it means to create value in the world." The suggestion hung in the air, and for a moment, Lucas seemed ready to reject it outright. But something had changed in him. Perhaps it was the weight of all those disappointed comments, or the quiet dignity with which Rachel had handled his abuse, or the simple truth in Statham's words. I'll think about it, he managed, his voice lacking its usual bravado. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a crack in the armor of arrogance he had built around himself. Frank Miller, finishing his coffee, added his own wisdom to the moment. You know, in my 30 years of teaching, I learned that the most powerful lessons often come from our moments of greatest humility. This could be that moment for you, young man. Rachel, who had remained composed throughout the entire ordeal, stood up with quiet grace. My next shift is tomorrow morning at 6, she said simply. If you're serious about learning, you can start then. The corner bistro had become more than just the setting for another viral video. It had become a place of transformation. The regular customers, the staff, and even Jason Statham himself had created a moment of genuine change, proving that sometimes the best content isn't content at all, it's real life, with all its messy, beautiful, authentic moments. Let us know in the comments if you've ever had a moment that changed your perspective on social media and what really matters in life. Sometimes the most powerful influencers aren't the ones with the most followers, they're the ones who show up every day, doing their best to make the world a little better for everyone around them. The next morning arrived at the corner bistro with a sense of anticipation. Rachel Anderson arrived early for her shift as usual, but today felt different. The events of yesterday had gone viral, not in the way Lucas Hayes had intended, but in a way that was causing ripples throughout social media for all the right reasons. At exactly 6 o'clock, the door chimed. Lucas walked in, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt instead of his usual designer clothes. His hair wasn't perfectly styled, and his face showed signs of a sleepless night. Alex Turner wasn't with him. There would be no cameras today. Diana Martinez was waiting, holding a spare apron and a notepad. I didn't think you'd actually come, Rachel admitted, watching as Lucas awkwardly tied the apron around his waist. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by something unfamiliar to him, humility. I almost didn't, he replied quietly. But I couldn't sleep last night. I kept reading the comments on my social media. Not just from yesterday, but from all my old videos. I never really thought about how the people I targeted felt after I left with my footage. The morning rush was about to begin, and there was no time for extended conversation. Diana quickly walked Lucas through the basics, how to carry plates, the proper way to take orders, the importance of keeping water glasses filled. It was clear from his expression that he had never considered how much work went into serving others. Frank Miller arrived for his usual morning coffee, raising an eyebrow at the sight of Lucas in an apron. But instead of judgment, the retired teacher offered something else. Everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow. That's what I told my students for 30 years. The first real test came when Lucas had to take his first table. His hands shook slightly as he approached a family of 4, his notepad held awkwardly. Rachel watched from nearby, ready to step in if needed, but letting him experience this moment for himself. Hi, I'm Lucas, and I'll be your server this morning, he managed, his voice lacking its usual performative confidence. The father glanced up, recognition flickering across his face. He had seen the viral video from yesterday. But instead of calling Lucas out, he simply ordered breakfast for his family, teaching his own quiet lesson about grace. As the morning progressed, Lucas began to understand what Rachel had meant about serving people during their real moments. He watched her console an elderly woman who was dining alone for the first time since losing her husband. He saw her cheerfully accommodate a child with autism who needed his pancakes arranged in a specific way. Each interaction was a masterclass in humanity that no social media course could teach. Sophie Lee, working her section nearby, noticed the change in Lucas's demeanor as the hours passed. The smirk was gone, replaced by genuine concentration as he tried to keep up with the demands of the job. When he dropped a plate, shattering it in the middle of the rush, it was Rachel who helped him clean it up, showing the same kindness she had extended to him even after his cruelty the day before. Michael Foster emerged from the kitchen during a brief lull, observing Lucas's progress. You know, he said, every person who walks through that door has a story. Some are celebrating, some are grieving, some are just trying to make it through another day. Our job isn't just to serve them food, it's to be part of their story in a positive way. The words hit Lucas hard, especially when a young aspiring actress came in, clearly having just been rejected at an audition. Instead of seeing an easy target for mockery, as he might have yesterday, he saw someone chasing their dreams, deserving of encouragement rather than ridicule. By the time Jason Statham returned to the diner for lunch, Lucas had served dozens of customers, each interaction teaching him something new about genuine human connection. His designer clothes were splattered with coffee, his carefully manicured hands had pruned from washing dishes, and his feet ached, but something in his eyes had changed. Statham took a seat at the counter, watching as Lucas navigated the lunch rush. "How's it going, mate?" he asked when Lucas finally had a moment to catch his breath. "It's humbling," Lucas admitted, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I keep thinking about all the servers I've mocked in my videos. I never understood what it takes to do this job." Rachel, overhearing the conversation, added her own perspective. "The hardest part isn't the physical work," she said. "It's maintaining your composure, your kindness, when people treat you like you're beneath them. Like your humanity is worth less than their entertainment." The word struck home. Lucas thought about his content, about how many times he had treated service workers as props in his quest for views. He thought about the comments sections filled with laughter at others' expense, the followers who cheered on his cruelty, the entire culture he had helped perpetuate. Diana Martinez had been observing Lucas throughout the shift, noting how each interaction seemed to chip away at his carefully constructed facade. "Sometimes," she said, joining the conversation, "the most valuable lessons come from walking in someone else's shoes. Or in this case, standing in their shoes for an 8-hour shift." As the lunch rush wound down, Lucas's phone buzzed continuously with notifications. His followers were demanding new content, wondering why he hadn't posted anything since yesterday's incident. But for the first time in years, he felt no urge to perform for the camera. "I need to make some changes," he said finally, looking at Statham. "Not just to my content, but to who I am as a person. I've been contributing to a culture that treats kindness as weakness and cruelty as entertainment." Statham nodded approvingly. Recognition is the first step. But the real test comes in what you do next. How you use your platform moving forward. Frank Miller, who had stayed longer than usual to watch this transformation, offered his own wisdom. "In my teaching days, I always said that true character isn't built in moments of success, but in how we handle our mistakes and learn from them." Lucas looked around the diner, at Rachel efficiently managing her tables, at Sophie Lee greeting customers with genuine warmth, at Diana Martinez ensuring everything ran smoothly. He saw what he had missed before, the quiet dignity of people who showed up every day to make others' lives better in small but meaningful ways. "I want to make a new video," he said suddenly. "Not like my old ones. I want to show my followers what I learned here. About real strength, real content, real connections." Rachel paused in her work, considering his words. "Sometimes the most powerful message isn't in what we say, but in how we change our actions," she offered. "Your followers might learn more from seeing you change than from hearing you talk about changing." Michael Foster stepped forward with a proposition. "Why don't you finish out the week here? Really understand what it means to serve others. Then, if you still want to make that video, you'll be speaking from genuine experience rather than a single day's revelation." Lucas looked down at his stained apron, then at his phone still buzzing with notifications. With a decisive movement, he turned the phone off completely. "I'd like that," he said quietly. "I have a lot more to learn." The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the corner bistro, casting a warm glow over the scene. In just over 24 hours, a story that had begun with an attempt at viral humiliation had transformed into something entirely different, a lesson about dignity, service, and the real meaning of influence. Let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment that completely changed your perspective on life. Sometimes the most powerful transformations come not from grand gestures, but from simple acts of kindness and the willingness to learn from our mistakes. 1 month had passed since the day Jason Statham had walked into the corner bistro and changed everything. The video of his confrontation with Lucas Hayes had become more than just another viral moment. It had sparked a conversation about kindness, respect, and the real meaning of influence in the digital age. Lucas had indeed finished that first week at the diner, but something unexpected happened. He asked to stay on 2 shifts a week, he told Michael Foster, to keep himself grounded. His social media presence had transformed dramatically. Gone were the pranks and public humiliation. Instead, his millions of followers were witnessing something rare in the influencer world: genuine growth. Today was special though. The corner bistro was closed to the public for a private event. Rachel Anderson stood in the middle of the dining room, surrounded by her co-workers, regular customers, and a few faces that had become unexpectedly familiar over the past month. The occasion? The launch of what Lucas was calling his most important video yet. "I still can't believe you kept filming that day," Rachel said to Sophie Lee, who had secretly recorded the entire confrontation with Statham on her phone. It wasn't the mocking footage Lucas had intended to capture, but rather the raw, powerful moment when authenticity met artifice. "Sometimes the best stories are the ones we don't plan," Sophie replied, adjusting the small display they had set up to show Lucas's new video. The young influencer had spent weeks working on it, determined to get it right. Jason Statham arrived just as they were about to begin, slipping in quietly through the back door. He had become something of a regular at the bistro, though he insisted it was just because they made a proper English breakfast. Everyone knew better. He had become invested in this story of transformation. "Ready?" Lucas asked, looking nervous in a way his old self would never have allowed the public to see. Gone was the carefully crafted image of the untouchable social media star. In its place was someone more real, more human. Diana Martinez dimmed the lights slightly as everyone gathered around. Frank Miller, who had watched this entire journey unfold from his regular spot at the counter, settled in with a fresh cup of coffee. "In 30 years of teaching," he mused, "I never saw a lesson take hold quite like this one." The video began playing on the screen. It opened not with Lucas's usual flashy intro, but with a simple shot of the corner bistro at dawn. His voice, stripped of its former performative energy, spoke over the image. "A month ago, I walked into this restaurant planning to make content out of someone else's dignity. I walked out with a lesson that would change my life. This is a story about what real influence looks like." What followed was a masterpiece of honest storytelling. Lucas had woven together Sophie's footage of Statham's intervention with his own journey over the past month. There he was, learning to balance plates, struggling with the coffee maker, slowly earning the respect of his co-workers through genuine effort rather than social media clout. But the real power of the video lay in its focus on Rachel and the other staff members. Through Lucas's new lens, viewers saw what he had learned to see: the quiet strength it takes to serve others with dignity, the skill involved in making every customer feel valued, the community that forms when people treat each other with genuine respect. "Working here taught me something my millions of followers never could," Lucas's voice continued over a montage of daily life at the bistro. "Real influence isn't about humiliating others for entertainment. It's about lifting people up, recognizing their worth, and adding value to their lives." The video showed moments that would never have made it into his old content: Rachel helping an elderly customer read a menu in low light, Sophie staying late to help decorate for a regular's birthday, Diana teaching Lucas how to handle difficult situations with grace. Michael Foster watched with pride as his restaurant was portrayed not just as a place to eat, but as a hub of human connection. "This is what I always dreamed this place could be," he said quietly to no one in particular. As the video progressed, it showed Lucas's own transformation through the eyes of others. Regular customers commented on how he had changed, fellow staff members shared their initial skepticism and growing acceptance, and through it all, Rachel's quiet influence served as the story's heart. "I used to think being an influencer was about numbers," Lucas's narration continued. "About likes and shares and viral moments. But real influence? That's what I see here every day. It's in the way Rachel remembers every regular's order, not for views, but because she cares. It's in how Diana manages to make every customer feel special. It's in the community that forms when people are treated with dignity." The video shifted to show Jason Statham's return visits to the bistro, not as a celebrity making an appearance, but as a regular customer who had found something authentic in an unexpected place. Sometimes it takes someone with real strength to show us what we're doing wrong, Lucas admitted in the voiceover. And sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to start climbing towards something better. Alex Turner, who had filmed so many of Lucas's prank videos, was shown having his own revelation. He had started volunteering at a local community center, using his skills to document real stories of human connection rather than manufactured moments of humiliation. The final segment of the video focused on the broader impact of what had happened at the corner bistro. Other influencers had begun questioning their content choices. Comments sections that once celebrated cruelty were now filled with discussions about responsibility and respect. A movement was growing, sparked by one moment of authentic confrontation between an action star and a social media prankster. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Lucas's voice concluded over the final scenes. "I'm not even asking for likes or shares. I'm asking my followers to do something harder. Look at how you treat people in your daily life. Ask yourself if you're using your influence, whether you have 10 followers or 10 million, to make the world better or worse." As the video ended, there was a moment of profound silence in the bistro. Then Frank Miller spoke up, his voice carrying the weight of decades of watching young people learn and grow. "Now that's what I call real content." Rachel wiped away a tear she hadn't realized was falling. The past month had taught her something too, that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the most unexpected blessings. She had gone from being the target of a cruel prank to becoming a symbol of dignity in the face of disrespect. Jason Statham stood up, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said to Lucas, "in my films, I usually solve problems with my fists. But what happened here? This is real strength. This is real action." Diana Martinez looked around at her assembled staff, at the community that had formed in this simple diner. "When you walked in that first day," she said to Lucas, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm proud of you." The video would go on to become Lucas's most viewed content ever, but not for the reasons his old videos had gone viral. It sparked a movement among content creators, challenging them to question the ethics of their work. The corner bistro became a symbol of something larger, a reminder that real influence comes not from mockery or manipulation, but from genuine human connection. As the group celebrated together, sharing stories and laughter, Rachel looked around at the unlikely family that had formed. A retired teacher, a restaurant manager, a reformed influencer, an action star, and a group of servers, all brought together by one moment of confrontation that had transformed into something beautiful. "So," Michael Foster asked Lucas with a smile, "same shift next week?" Lucas looked down at his phone, now used more for scheduling work shifts than filming pranks, and nodded. "Wouldn't miss it. I've got a lot more to learn." Let us know in the comments if you've ever witnessed someone transform their mistakes into meaningful change. Sometimes the most powerful content isn't what we create for social media. It's the real stories of human connection, growth, and redemption that unfold in unexpected places like a corner bistro in Los Angeles.